ehrlich gesagt. 3.
Nice and clean.
Nice and clean. Get everything nice and clean, just like a pro would do it. Hi! Welcome back again. What is this, the 4th video?
Guess so, yeah.
Something like the 4th video, right? Yeah, we're actually doing stuff. Another week, another video. We have this time, we have a dessert. I actually like doing desserts, like really big time. I actually always love doing desserts more than anything else, to be honest, because it's always like a, I don't know, I've got a sweet tooth for stuff like this. But yeah, so we're gonna go into a vegetable style dish, but actually that's typically like the only type of like dessert I usually make. Like you're never gonna see anything classic on here. You're never gonna see like weird eclairs or whatever. So this dessert is basically beetroot, obviously red beetroot in this case, with a beetroot caramel. We're gonna make an ice cream, sort of, slash ice cream. It's gonna be made of lavender syrup and olive oil. And we're gonna have Greek yogurt with fermented raisins, like fermented grapes that have been made to half-made raisins, basically. And this is actually kind of inspired from our vacation on Greece. We're in Greece? At Greece? You say that?
To Greece?
To Greece. On Greece.
Our Greek
Our Greek vacation. We're basically at the buffet and there was not really much you could eat that in the morning, so we actually just took like Greek yogurt, threw in some raisins. They had these really crazy raisins going on there and all kinds of dried fruit, and I just used honey and what's it called? And olive oil. And I was like, oh my God, this actually tastes so amazing. How is this not a thing? Like maybe it is a thing, but I didn't know about it. But still, I was like so impressed. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make some out of this. And yeah, that's basically what we're doing today. The weird Greek inspired buffet food that we did. Fun. Starting off with our beetroot. What we're gonna do with this, we're basically just gonna cut this thing down, peel it obviously, and take the bigger ones for juicing, and we're gonna take one of the smaller ones for our actual dessert. Like it's all gonna be for the dessert, but like the most beautiful round one is gonna be the one that we're actually gonna use as our main component. So we're gonna take the big ones. I think this one should be the winner. I'm gonna take this one. This one's gonna be our beetroot dessert. So the rest of this, we're just gonna peel it, cut it down nice and small, and then we're gonna juice it and make caramel out of that. Also, if you're doing this, don't be like me. Wear gloves. Funny thing is, we've made this dessert about like 5 times already. We actually tried doing a recording of this a while back for testing reasons, but now we're actually like in advanced quality. So we actually made the whole thing again. So yeah, we already have some prepared. Plus we also cooked this for the family one day. So we know how to do this now. Yeah, she always eats the leftovers. Yeah. So we got these bad boys. We're just gonna chop these down into like small pieces, about like, just so they can fit inside the juicer. All right, so we basically have our juice ready, right? It's gonna turn into our caramel later on. What we wanna do is basically we're gonna make a caramel, just get it to a certain temperature. I'm guessing around like 210 degrees, then Celsius, obviously. Then we're gonna take this stuff, and instead of putting water on top of the sugar, we're just gonna use this instead. And then we're gonna reduce it down to, let's say measure out the amount of juice that you have, and in the end, reduce it so far down that you have a quarter left of it. And that's basically the texture that you want in the end. So for our caramel, we're just gonna take 1/10% of the juice that we have. So if we have 500 grams of juice, we're gonna use 50 grams of sugar. So we're just gonna scale 50 grams of sugar. So we're gonna add a little bit of water to the sugar so it caramelizes evenly. And then we're just gonna bring it to 210, 215 degrees Celsius, around that area. Be very careful, it's gonna be very hot. Just a little bit of water, you know? Just a little bit, get it in there. You know, nothing too spectacular, just that it all melts evenly. So like I said, we're gonna get this thing to 215 degrees, boil it all out. As soon as it stops steaming, that means that all the water is cooked out. That's basically what we want, and that's where we should start to pay attention, basically. So thing is, as you can see here, water is starting to go away. That means the coloring process should actually start. It's gonna start roasting, and that's what we want. We're gonna get this thing to 215 degrees, and then we're just gonna, instead of using water like you usually would use, or like cream, we're gonna use this beetroot juice. See, now there's no more steam. That means now stuff is about to happen. For measuring purposes, always like lean it a little bit to the side. Otherwise you're not gonna get the actual temperature. You're just gonna get the air temperature coming from the stove. Now we're gonna pour our stuff inside.
Be careful.
Be very careful. Turn off your stove. Okay, now we're just gonna keep this at a very low temperature and just reduce it down to 1/4 of the amount that it was. So for this beetroot, we basically just washed it, right? And now we're just gonna cut it into slices, thick slices, about like this. 1.2 centimeters thick, basically, around that size. Also, you wanna get like the centerpiece out of this thing. The rest you can use for the juice as well. About like this size. This is what we're talking about. Just magically cut that thing down and got it on 1.2 centimeters. Big.
You made it by eye.
Nano eye. Talking about our beetroot, right? We're just gonna take the slices that we have, put them in a vacuum bag, flat next to each other, nicely aligned.
Nice and clean.
Look at this. All right, so we're gonna close this. Just vacuum seal it. All right, so now we're just gonna take our beetroot, finally vacuum sealed and packed, and without air, obviously. The point of doing this is that we're trying to get the water to loosen up and the actual beetroot to not be as hard as it is now, obviously. We're just gonna try to get it loosened up a little bit. So we're just gonna boil this for around about 45 minutes to maybe an hour. I'll let you know in the description, as well as I'll just do the weird thing here, you know, the thing with the stuff. Okay, so put it in here, add some water, bring it to a boil, and leave it in there, like boiling for the certain amount of time. All right, so now we've cooked our beetroot and vacuum sealed. There's a lot of excess juice that came out. And so what we're gonna do now, we're just gonna take them out. See, they've been cooked properly. Now we're just gonna put them on our tray here and dehydrate them. But not completely, they're supposed to be sort of soft still. Like they're supposed to actually be like, if you wanna scale it out, maybe scale it out and make them lose about like 20 to 30%. And then we're gonna rehydrate it in the caramel. As you can tell, it's obviously lost a lot of its water inside, a lot of its juice, but that's exactly the texture that we want. In the end, it's gonna kind of look like that as well, but we're gonna first rehydrate it with the caramel a bit. So for this, we've actually taken our sauce, which is actually the beetroot caramel. And yeah, like I said, we've reduced it down to a certain point. Now we're gonna take those beetroot slices, throw them back in there, heat them up real quick once. And then we're just gonna let it settle for about 10 minutes and then dehydrate them again.
Are you going to boil?
No, we're not gonna boil it. We've already boiled it up once. Now we're just gonna leave them in there 5 to 10 minutes so they soak up a little bit again, and then we're gonna dehydrate it again so the caramel goes inside. We're heating it up so it's loosening up the texture of the beetroot as well. So everything is nice and warm because it can obviously go in a bit better when it's warm. Lavender ice cream part 1. So for our lavender ice cream, we basically need a ton of lavender. It doesn't have to be the flowers. Preferably you could, but you don't have to, because actually the stems also give a lot of flavor as well. So we're gonna take our lavender, right? Just break it a bit, squeeze it a bit, and put it in a glass like this. And then we're gonna get our sugar and water together, get that to a boil, and then just fill it in here and let it rest maybe overnight, preferably 2 nights. And then you have a nice flavor coming out. That's gonna suck out all the flavor of the lavender, and we're gonna get basically like a lavenderish type of tea that we want, and a syrup that is gonna be our base for the ice cream that we're gonna make later on. So for our syrup, we wanna take half the amount of sugar that we have for water. So in this case, it would be 500 grams of water and 250 grams of sugar. I'm just gonna start with the 250 grams of sugar here real quick. And now we're gonna add 500 grams of water. Now we're just gonna boil this bad boy and then fill it in this glass. Okay, so we basically brought our syrup to a boil. Just boiled it up once, stirred it a little bit just to get the, like if it's fully transparent then it's perfect. If you were wondering how much lavender I've actually used for this, this is roughly 15 grams. So yeah, we're just gonna take this, pour it on here and seal it. And this one is gonna be open next morning. For our lavender ice cream, right? We're gonna take our lavender syrup that we've actually made last night. It's taken a lot of flavor now. It's very sweet already from the aroma, to be honest, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's what we want. So we're just gonna scale round about 300 grams of syrup and 110 grams of olive oil.
Nice and clean.
Nice and clean. Get everything nice and clean, just like a pro would do it. No, it was an accident waiting to happen. I actually know that glasses like that don't really pour out in a clean way. If you keep it like it's too full, but I'm just gonna do it. Gonna put this in our blender, add a lid, Also, we're gonna add about 1 gram of Xanthan. You're adding Xanthan to something, you usually wanna blend it while you're doing so, otherwise you're gonna have weird lumps inside, so remember that while doing it. So blend it and throw in your Xanthan. That's your base for the ice cream. Some might call it dressing, some might call it mayonnaise, but you know what? It's an ice cream. I know a lot of people would probably say this is not a typical ice cream, this is not the way you would do an ice cream, this is not the way you do a sorbet, whatever. It's not about that. It's about if you have something in the end that tastes exactly the way you wanted it. It's creamy, it's frozen, it's a paste. What do you want more? The question is not, is it an ice cream or is it a sorbet? The question is it good or is it bad? And that's the question you should ask yourself. So that's like kind of the twist in stuff like modern day cooking, basically. Not trying to focus on what's already there, but trying to think of something new, you know? That's what we're trying to do here. So yeah, of course, this is not gonna be a typical ice cream, but it has a texture of one, it looks like one, it tastes like one, so we're gonna call it an ice cream. So now we're just gonna pour this in our basic ice cream machine and leave it in there for about 20 minutes.
Can you make this ice cream without an ice cream machine, or do you need one?
You could do it by hand if you want to, but it's just, no. You won't be able to do it without an ice cream machine. You could do it, but I just wouldn't recommend it. So this is basically gonna be the process that's gonna take the longest of time. So this is gonna be our raisins in the end. We're gonna use normal red grapes, preferably without seeds, otherwise it's gonna be a pain in the ass to eat later on. We're gonna take the nicest ones of these, obviously, like they have to be really, really okay, like not like weird fungusy parts on top or something, otherwise it's not gonna work and you're just gonna have messed up food and it's gonna, fermentation is very scary at those points, but actually with fruit and vegetables, nothing weird can happen. But yeah, you wanna take clean ones, obviously wash them beforehand, and then we're just gonna put it in a vacuum bag, scale that out, and add 1.7% of salt. That's pretty much it. And then we're just gonna leave them at room temperature for about like 5 days. After that, remove them and put them on one of these trays to dehydrate, basically. We have our dehydrator here. Set it to about 50 degrees Celsius and just leave them in there for about another 3 to 4 days. And always check, they're not supposed to be like completely dry like raisins, they're supposed to be kind of softy and not completely through. We actually already finished them beforehand, so we already still have some leftovers. I'm just gonna show you real quick how they look like in the end. Not completely raisin, but on the best way. I'd say like a 70% raisin right here.
Chewy, it has to be.
It has to be chewy, it has to feel like dates kind of. It's gonna be a little bit salty obviously and a little bit of the ferment flavor in there, but that's exactly what we want. So now we've added our salt, added our grapes, 1.7% of the weight inside. And now we're just gonna leave it outside at room temperature for about 5 days. And it's gonna start bloating up. There's gonna be water inside and it's gonna look really weird because there's gonna be like gas building up inside, but that's exactly what we want. So the only thing to do now, as you can see, the bag is bloated up a little bit. That's the fermentation going on in there. You're just gonna take them out of the bag and put them in your dehydrator for 50 degrees Celsius for about 3 days. So talking about the plating, there's actually a few things to think about. For instance, the room temperature. The sauce as well as the beetroot itself has to be room temperature for the aroma to unfold completely, so keep that in mind. For the Greek yogurt, you're just going to take basic, as like really just normal Greek yogurt. You can use vegan types of Greek yogurt. If there's something similar to that, you can totally do that as well. Take 5 raisins, add that to the dish. Otherwise, we used a few wild herbs that actually go in more sweet type direction. I could totally recommend something like bronze fennel. Something like that would actually work properly. Coming to the ice cream, it doesn't matter if you froze it right after making it. Like if you haven't frozen it and you're just using it like at the moment you've made it, that's perfect, I guess. But if you've frozen it afterwards and it became kind of solid, just scrape it out a little bit. As soon as you have it in your mouth, because of all the oil that you added to it, it will become very creamy as well. So don't worry about that. Just scrape it out and put it on the plate. Put a lot of it on the plate. Let's say about like 2 tablespoons to 3 tablespoons, like big piles, sort of like I made here. Otherwise, yeah, thank you for watching the video and have a wonderful day.